peace in Islam. Today we're going to talk about um, basically the Moorish nationality and how to look at it mentally. We got people who look from the outside looking in. They see what their eyes see, and they formulate everything based off what they see instead of what they study and know. Um, like the religion, you must try to start off every video with some Islamism, which is the religion of the Moorish Americans, and take the spookism out of it. And we got from Buddha L. We got some lessons from Buddha. I want to touch on number 9 and 10. Number 9, he is great. He is a greater man who conquers self than he who kills 1,000 men in war. And that precept is very, very important to know through and through. So, to bring it to our modern times, this is fear. The fear in our heads needs to be conquered more than anything outside of ourselves. Most of the things that we dream about as a nation, what we want to do as a nation, we block ourselves in our head before even trying it through fear. For example, just to say you want to get a job that you want, and you feel that you don't qualify, so you don't sign up for that job. The thing is, your own mind stop you from signing up before you even try to see. And that one small example is an example that we can put towards an entire nation of people, which is the Moorish nation of North America. A lot of things we do, or we say, that we can't do because white man might do this or might do that, but we never attempt it. We stop ourselves in our head before we attempt these things. So the greater man is the one who conquered that within himself than the one who can kill 1,000 men in war. Remember that conquering self is much more oppressive than anything you can do outside of yourself. Not just fear, but all the different things that stop us: laziness, gluttony, all self things. 10, he is the noble man who he himself, what he believes, what other man should be. And that goes into the thousands of videos I see on YouTube of talking about Moorish Americans, coming from people who, when you ask them who are them, they say something other than a Moor or Moorish Americans. That is a person who is not himself, but telling you how to think about that situation. He's not being what he believes that you shouldn't be or should be. I don't see that. I don't see people telling people to be Moors, and them not calling themselves that. But I do see people telling people not be Moors, and they're not calling themselves that. So how could they know what that is? So that's these two. I see that's a big problem in our community, and why the number one book I recommend is the Holy Quran, Circle Seven for us. I believe those precepts is what we don't we need to get back into our households. Even though we still got granny and granddaddy who got these lessons, it's slumming more and more. So let's start off with that. Let's continue. Now, these first four pictures is going to be what we're going to talk about in this video. We're also going to talk about the idea of Rome. We see the end of Moorish enlightenment and the beginning of the Columbian era. And when Moors say they're in Morocco, but they're sitting next to you in New Jersey, North Carolina, Florida, etc. We're talking about mental states. And we know Washington, D.C. is called the District of Columbia, the Columbian era. So out of the Moorish era comes the Columbian era. That's why we know we in Morocco. Washington, D.C. is a diocese of Rome, the District of Columbia. But it always come out of this. Everything Roman always come out of this. Like we see on this map, you can squish this map across the whole world, and that'll be more accurate. But we see in Africa, Rome in Africa. We know Rome used the term Africa on a jurisdiction of Moorish lands. So we know Washington, D.C. label Moors in America as African Americans, because while in Rome there's no Carthaginians, there's no Moors, just Africans, subjects of Rome in Africa. That's why we don't use that term, because it became a term used for Roman subjects. You see, everything on this page is Latin. And you see, we still even say it in Latin, Africa. You see, Carthage is under the Roman jurisdiction, Africa. Now you got Moors living in all these areas, living in Carthage, in Morocco, Tripoli, Tunis, Algiers, but you got Moors here who subjugated by Rome, who don't live in there, they live in Africa, but they live in the same spot. It's all a mental thing. Extraterritorial jurisdictions. In Spain used the term India, but Rome used the term Africa and blacks for Moors subjugated in their territories. So Washington, D.C. was using the same Western Roman Empire influence. That's why they call you African Americans. That's why they create a new map of Africa and place it in sub-Saharan Africa. Because Africa is just that term that if they got Moors up here subjugated, those Moors can be African Britannic. Because that's how they record Moors in their books as Africans and black slaves. If they got treaties with Moors, which they do, then they leave them alone for the most part. But those Moors who come in their jurisdiction, they're going to work for them and build up their jurisdiction. Hope that makes sense. Look at it in the United States way. That's what's going on. We're going to talk about this in this video. Noble Ali said, the industrious act of the Muslims of the Northwest and the Southwest Africa. He using this term like the ancients used it. The industrious acts of the Muslims of the Northwest and Southwest Africa is North America and South America and the islands. These are the Moabites, Hamatite, Canaanites, who were driven out of the land of Canaan, which is, I believe, Brazil or Canada, by Joshua, and received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle in that portion of Egypt. So that's why I know he's talking about a different place with this Africa, because if he's saying that portion, it must be another portion. And that other portion is the other half of the world, because it's all under Egypt jurisdiction at that time. So to settle in this portion of Egypt, which is North Africa. In later years, they formed themselves kingdoms. So they settled here, coming from Northwest America or Africa, which is North America and South America and Southwest. And they settled here, and later on, these became kingdoms. These kingdoms are called this day, today, Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli, which is these. And that's why I know Northwest Africa is not this. North and Southwest Africa, because they come from somewhere else. So Northwest Africa must be somewhere else. This became Northwest Africa, the Maghreb. Much later, got Morocco, Tripoli into it, and we took our names there. So Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli, we had kingdoms on our side with those same names. When he said this day, he talking about modern day, these four kingdoms that stretch all the way to Egypt, stretch to this line. So that can't be the Northwest and Southwest Africa that they came from. Got driven out. Which of course Joshua ain't driven each and every last one of those Moors out. Just some. And they set up kingdoms. They multiplied and set up more kingdoms. So the people over there is basically our family. And that makes sense to me, because the pharaohs of Egypt would have all this property under his jurisdiction too, and give them right to the ports, come in to trade. Throughout this video, we're going to get more and more evidence of this. We also know in chapter 47 that He included North America, Central America, South America, and joining Atlantis Islands, a part of the Muslims' uh, kingdoms. We're going to talk about, you see, how they take down your original and bring you a new God. Baptism, how does change you from more to whatever different Christian nation name they have for you under subjugation. Like I said, Rome would give you African, they would give you Indian, they would give you African. And we still see that today. We see that up and down the continent. Afro-Brazilian, Afro-Mexican, those terms don't really exist. Now, if you understand the ancient Africa, then it's fine if you can explain that. But when most people use this term, they're talking about our modern day version, which is across the ocean. To see that that was you, that where you come from. You ain't got no evidence of that. For me, I can say I am African and explain how ancient Carthaginian from the Afri tribe without Rome defining that for me. But Noble Charlie ain't tell you you ain't been there. He tell you was a Moor. He could have said you been an African if you was. But he understood Rome and how they did things. So we got North America. You see the red cape. So he's a Moabite. Ancient Israelite, Canaanite, Moorish American. You can see that in this video too. I can show you Red Kip Gang again. Even though I'm not sure, I can show some more Red Kip Gang all over the world. They understood empire. They knew each other. They've been already running. And we know that now, a lot more now, with all the mudflood videos that you were talking about, this ancient empire got covered up. I showing you the people. The ones who set up these kingdoms. People who set up these kingdoms are these people who come from the west, north and southwest. You're gonna see we see a lot of evidence of that today. So one more thing. Gustave Aimaro. So American version, a different version. That's how I know Amaru and Amir. Like we got Amir, American, all those just mean a Moorish prince. From the ancient Egyptian empire, Emir. No matter how many times you can take the M and the aura, and no matter how you put those vowels together, you're always going to come out to the one who gives commands. You can do Moro, you can do Ma order, you can do Ma order, you can do Mar Yan, you can do Moro, Mora, and you can do the English Moor. You can do the ancient American Muur. You can do any one of those, all mean the same thing. We just use the MOOR because we speak English today, and we ain't giving the devil no room. Treaties and the documents that's translated to English say MOOR. If the court is a court of Latin, then we gonna use MAUR. The ancient family of South Carolina was unquestionably of notable descent and were landowners and prominent citizens of France. And remember, France was a jurisdiction at this time, not a modern day, just like Africa, just like a lot of these terms, just like Morocco. Um, the noble princes of France and their subjects got kingdoms all over the place because trade and barter. And you can see right here, they say the Manigault family was descended from Ashby, one of whom was a Carolina Cacique. This is a Moorish title like Sharif. So look for this in your history, your local history. This the American. All these people is the Moorish Americans. They got these same names today, but don't know why. They think that a Frenchman or Englishman raped and enslaved their family. That's where they think they get these names from. And look at the Manigault seal, Moorish American with a crown. Understanding systems of oppression is key to being able to resist oppression. So you gotta understand Rome if you're trying to resist Rome, which is again the District of Columbia, the Knights of Columbia. Like we see, the Cuban dish, Moros y Cristianos, Moors in Spanish, you see, different from how we do English. But the MR there, the vowels came later from different countries. They got different versions. Some countries might have a U or A U O I R. Every country got a different version. And Cristianos, Moors, Christians. Now you see the dish, black beans, white rice. So you see how they call them Moors, they call them black people. They call them Moors, black people in Rome. And they call them Cristianos, white people in Rome. Both of these people is pawns on the chessboard. If they don't know what it is. See, the Blue Vein Society. These are Moors who losing their birthright, trying to separate from darker skinned Moors. When in America we come in all kind of complexions within our families, but that's how most start using their birthright, class and color. Well, really color. That's what caused most to lose their birthright in Rome. Part of the problem that we went through. We end up fixing the problem, but after the fact, you can see. It's another organization. After like a year or whatever, like 1790 something, they already start. Look how old this is. You know Moore's been here governing. Just like the United States. They create a society, and if all their people participated, it would have grown into a national government. They organized these organizations, did a lot of things, just like you will see on the college when you walk past the college, you will see that G, Masonic um, G, to the Masons on half of those buildings because that's where these things come from. These things come from the organization. Noble John Lee create one of these. That's why it's just a template. The way our ancestors used to create kingdoms and operate our government and ministry. That's why the Moorish Science temples don't just supposed to just be whales today. It's supposed to already have transformed into actual jurisdiction, probably to the at this point printing the currency to facilitate the Moorish Americans trade and barter with the rest of the human family on the planet. You got that right. Societies started off as a template or temple. A fellowship. We can get the science of our mind like we had in the beginning through the Moorish Science Temple to children. They grow up to be the future leaders of the society because they got their foot to do these things, to govern it. And we see Brown University, the Brown Fellowship Society, and the Roman Empire. When we went from Spanish to English, they took Moreno and made it Brown, even though that's an erroneous, by Spanish dictionary authors, that's an erroneous definition for Moreno. But in their jurisdiction and realm, they do things like that and hope you follow. The Brown Fellowship Society, you see how they govern it. At the 82nd anniversary meeting of the Brown Fellowship Society, so they have a Congress, there's government, officers, elections. Over time, more stopped doing this for themselves. Based off the Knights of Columbus terrorism, these the men who get terrorized. They study their history. Rome got a reconstructed history for these guys, but you can see through. If you understand Rome, you'll be able to see through, because most people brainwashed by Rome. So you be able to read through their brainwash and get the truth. Dark stuff like this give you more truth since it's older. And the ships of Ellis Islands. There's one event that Rome did that been illegal according to the law of the land because a proper Congress intervened to set new immigration laws. So you got a lot of people here improperly under white and black status. Under 14th Amendment status, they needed their own citizens. So they kidnapped as much citizens as they could out of the several states, take them out the original government, put them in a federal government. Because the government in the several states, each of the states, you're a citizen of one of those states. The document say citizens of the United States, that they're not saying, in those times, 1700s, it wasn't saying a place called United States. It wasn't a federalized federal government. The federal government and Congress, the several states in Congress assembled. But during the Civil War, after the Civil War Reconstruction, a supposed Congress convened and passed an act. This act, we can see later, don't apply to everybody, it applied to their citizens, which was an illegal immigration act. we see how free you been in reality. And what been going on in the country. And a lot of Moors also lose their birthright by amalgamating with these people. So ain't nobody know who he is legally dealing with Rome, all these games they play. So how to read in Rome, off the top, Richard's black. So the person who writing the article, you already know they reconstructed in their head. They under they a converted person more, most likely. So you gotta read with a get the information out of it. Like Richard R. Everett Durif was born in 1798. I can take that. When they start talking about opinions, you know. But we can see that they got him as a mulatto. In those times, this didn't mean what we got in our times. People from one nation and another nation could have made a mulatto in those times, in the understanding of this word. People who in one country but speaking another language could have been called mulatto. So you see, mulatto, he couldn't get in the so-called mulatto organization because of his dark complexion. Right? Richard Edward DeReef. Richard Edward DeReef. So this author don't even know that he been definitely in that society. Along with his brother Joseph, the pair founded he founded his own society. So he found this one, a benevolent organization of free men of color. At this time, these people who we talking about, Edward and DeReef and all of them, they had documents saying they were Moors. A lot of them. A lot of those documents destroyed. And their children, blacks, after the Reconstruction period. Look at us, 1798. So that's way before the Civil War. He born, in Morocco, in Charleston, at that time. If you look up his father's history, which I already did, they got him coming from Spain. The government at that time only recognized kingdoms and empires and dominions. So they could talk about Spain that's here, which has been a lot of territory. Matter of fact, could have just been Charleston at that time when Spain had jurisdiction. Or he been operating under the old Moorish who been speaking Spain, who been governing a lot of places in the Florida. Look that up, Moorish towns, which is the South. So he established a lumber factory. They've been building ships. These Moors been in Charleston, still building ships on the coast. But all their children is in the streets, just getting locked up and all kind of stuff. Because none of the people know who they is no more. And they got these names and don't even know their grandfathers. So I'm going to show you what happened to these Moors. You already know some of them bleach out because they want to separate themselves. 1854, the Reef Court, we're talking about now, an African American residential community, which is his people, named after both of them, It's supposed to be mulatto, right? So I say mulatto mean what we mean today. Let's records show mulatto. Let's records show white on one of them on Ancestry. Census come back, even Indian on the next one. And then the last one mulatto, and the rest of his family down to the day as blacks and African Americans. But one they don't got us as record as a more because the census wouldn't write that on it even if we've been telling them that they can show evidence of that. We tell them we're Moorish Americans back then and they would write white or Indian or mulatto. That was going on at that time. See, I want to know more about this colored slave owner after reading a small bit about him in the Galator. There's more information out there than I expected. I wish I see a photograph of his Caucasian, which don't mean what we think he mean. Indian Americans parents. The New York Times article truly fascinated me. First of all, so they call his father Caucasian in modern times because the records don't got no pictures in it, but they got it come from Spain, like I say. So they assume that that's who that is, because this man got money. He wanted to root this man by his records. They can look at that and see that. So they just struggling to try to tell us the story. These people who don't know themselves. They learn all this in Roman schools, the public schools that we've been going to. New York Times article truly fascinated me. First of all, I'd love to see who wrote it, which is somebody in 1902. Secondly, it's nice to hear that always they're nice about the sick and twisted system. They were legitimate and acknowledged mulatto children. He or she believe in mix with a so-called white person and so-called black person or Indian or whatever in their mind. But that's a nice feeling quickly disappeared when I searched for more information for Isabella, which is the mother. Now, see, he was one of the richest black men in Charleston. He had a wharf, a woodage business on a lot of property. I walk past a lot of his property all the time. Harvey in the hand of foreign nationals who not come and take all this because we being black and white people running around. He ran this out to his own people. And you see how Rome tried to do this to them too. A lot of them always get this free person of color and free black. See, a native Charlestonian. He had stock in Charleston, in the corporation Charleston. A lot of these Moors have been running this shit. That's why I wouldn't even throw it away. I'll just run it. A bunch of officers that they create anyway. I let nobody debo me, not a Roman. The fuck. Truth was greater than fiction. That's from the newspaper article that she's been talking about. Because they had to write about this too in 1902. The New York Times editor had come to Charleston and write about this story. But by 1902, Reconstruction had happened, so he's still writing it from a point of view that he don't really know what's going on in the 1820s and 30s and 40s when he been doing what they do. When it been since 1867, after the war, we can follow his story and see how this family fail, just like the rest of our families. Most of our families go wreck because you're gonna run into people who from England, France, Germany, and they ain't gonna. And some of them they don't even have a paying for. Most they don't, but don't take that into any account for all of that line because those places are here. They have to call them something. In North America, those records been France, England, Spain, Africa, and Morocco. But those documents they destroy a lot of those ones. So he said the prevalent views, state documents, congressional debates, and lecture courses bearing upon the general subject render it difficult of belief that the proclamation, so even in his time, 1902, he can't believe what he reading when he started to get this research. So it's difficult of belief that the proclamation of emancipation by Mr. Lincoln reduced many Moorish Americans in the South. He said many colored people of the South, and especially in the city of Charleston, from a state of affluence and competence. They governing, they got officers. That's what he finding. These people and lower slaves to a condition of need and if not poverty, which were they at today. He found that out in 1902. That happened quick after the Civil War. A whole lot of these families, even they say at least 900 families in the city of Charleston are gone. That's the whole city. Families, not 900 people. They're going by the records that they've finding. And again, like I said, a lot of people had documents saying they've been subject to the Emperor of Morocco. But I say that, but such was the case. So we think that this event been to free us. We had the Juneteenth, and everything celebrating this event, right? But at least for us in Charleston, we know by research that take our property, that destroy our confidence, and put us in a state, a different status bracket, a lower status bracket. And again, it was just because they became black people on paper and accepted it. See, those slave owners were not called Negroes, so he know, but he ain't gonna tell you. He could tell you colored people, 'cause that's what the United States would call them Moors. They would not put Moors on their paper because they're Christians in the District of Columbia. That's the Knights of Columbus. They only want Africans and Negroes in their country because that's what work for. They can brainwash them. Don't teach their kids no science, just fear and superstitions like today. To stifle their growth and just keep them working for Rome and bullying Rome. All their energy go to Rome. When they Moors, they work for their own country with just each other, and they bully their own country. That's how Moors think. So they can't be Moors in Rome. This researcher, he seen colored people. That's how Rome separate the Moors from each other. They couldn't really exploit them. So they had to write something other than Negroes for them. They can't exploit them because in law they can't exploit Moors through treaty. Or Indian or Caucasian. He believed that they been by blood sometimes mixed. But we know in North America we are all different shades. So they guess based off these terms that they see. Many of the colored people of Charleston had no African, black, whatever, because they didn't have an African on their documents. They didn't have an United States and putting them as uh, from England and stuff like that. The question you asked in the newspaper, News of Korea failed to answer is how did these people come into possession of their slaves? By inheritance, gift, or purchase? The answer is by all these ways. They were generally the children of rich planters who, in the early days of the coast settlement, established themselves in Lower South Carolina, with Charleston as the center of operation. Now you know we read in the beginning that these families already been had a Kakikwe, which is a native Moor in America, in their family. So they were the planters. These children were regarded as such and not as illegitimate of slaves. They bore the name of the father who recognized and as by right they were also educated because their father had looked like them. The person who wrote this in 1902, assuming that the father been somebody like a Caucasian, and he's a mixed child. But when you read these stories, they don't got no evidence of none of that. They just assuming that. Upon the death of the father, these children will come in by inheritance into possession of the state. You see, this whole thing is this author trying to justify why these dark-skinned people got all this stuff going on before the Civil War when Rome, because Rome already teaching everybody that they African slaves. So it don't make sense that in the time when they're supposed to be the most enslaved, they're not. So this whole thing, they try to justify that. But they said there was a very large number of these free colored people in Charleston in the 18th century. An interesting article on this subject may be found in the January issue of Southern Workman. Other people writing about this after the fact. Some of those who owned slaves in years before the war were named Reese, McKinley, Westons. You can talk about the Westons next, and I'll end it right there. Holloways, Thorns, and Howards. They are descendants of some of those people in New York and Brooklyn today. So it's up and down the colonies, up and down the United States. These are the people who, when we see we the people of the United States of America, these all of them right here. The Americans, our Marikanos, estados. This is information enough at hand on this subject to fill a book. But let me relate you one story which may prove interesting. And there's plenty of books out about this, but none by us, none by their descendants, the Moorish Americans. Only by people who coming from out of Rome mentality writing about the story. Never by a Moorish American. I ain't got to see a book yet by us who got a better understanding of all this history. There was a rich man in Charleston named Fowler. He took a woman of African descent and established her in his home. So they're going to assume Fowler as a so-called white slave owner. Whether they were a pledge of relationship or a form of ceremony is not of record, but it was known that he had no other family. There was a daughter born at home to was given the name Isabella, but the planter insisted upon it that all persons should know her as Miss Fowler. She grew to womanhood and was married to Dorif, a young man of Caucasian Indian blood, and he put that on there because we can go today and find his records from that time period, And you got some of them that say white, some of them say Indian. And when you go down the history, you get the mulattoes and black people, and a bunch of black people today under different names in that bloodline. But all of them most likely call themselves black. I never meet all of them to know if they know if they're Moorish American or not. But they must know in their states because they don't know that. So let's get to just the rest of the article. Alright, this was important right here. So, and another thing the news Korea is wrong that is in saying these three persons of color had no political privileges. So he found out otherwise. The Reef brothers, Richard and Joseph, born respectively in 1798 and 1802. So that's before the Civil War, beginning of the establishment of the country. So they still be around when a lot of us to be the people we just wrote it a couple of decades. Decades before this. Decade or two. Say they voted, you see, on reaching their majority, and even after. So before so-called black people got right to vote in 1871, right? African Americans, the black get the right to vote and do all kind of other privileges. You got two of them already voting, then and afterwards. Then I need that for them. Whoever they were talking about, ain't been a lot of these malls, ain't applied to them. And why? Because some others may have enjoyed the same privilege. He finding out that a lot of them ain't just these one brothers. But there are colored men in Charleston today, talk about me, and some now like elsewhere. So in 1907, you still have Moors in Charleston who were voting without the United States privilege to let them vote. They were voting like their grandfathers, see, who would claim the right to vote on the grandfather clause. So they ain't been voting under a black. And the only way that they I know about this, they I know about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, because that's the only person who been free, looking like them in Rome. Or the Moors who've been the citizens of the United States who had come into the country through the Free White Person Act in 1790. In the treaty, they listed as citizens of the United States, and that's each state individually. So they can be the citizen of North Carolina or South Carolina, one of the 13 colonies. So without not the federal government citizenship that they're talking about today. You're gonna see that in a second. But you see the grandfather clause is a grandfather clause is a provision in which an old rule continues to apply to some existing situations, while a new rule applies to future cases. So since they already been in the country voting, they ain't been talking about them when they've been freeing black people. They ain't been talking about these brothers and a whole bunch of other people who you would call black today out of your ignorance if you see them. But they dying who they been, because they wouldn't been able to vote in 1798, 1802. So they been voting back then, so they used the grandfather clause like Noble Lee when he said the 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendment didn't apply for his people because they already been deemed free in this said government in 1774. Grandfather clause. He used that same thing. He used the same legal doctrine called grandfather clause. You may read all this, but you could. Very interesting information. You just know you read it from the mind of somebody who don't really got understanding of these terms, but they giving you sources. When you read the sources yourself, you can see some of the mistakes they think they're doing a lot of guessing. But I want to show you one thing right here. They say, see how Rome players, they've been doing their best trying to destroy these people Moorish heritage on this land because that's making them the highest class citizens here because that's the Marikanos estates, estados. That's the estates. They are the Americans. So what they've been doing, been trying to call them free blacks, and free people call it, try to act like they're giving them their rights, but we're gonna list you as this. So this been a problem if they didn't fight this because they start restricting even free blacks. So now they unconstitutionally putting black holes on you. So they started to lose their freedoms through District of Columbia legislative trickery in the government. And a lot of these Moors who've been in the government were Christian and brainwashed too and were getting it. But there's been a lot of Moors on the land who suffer by trying to fight this, especially the ones who've been wealthy, like the reefs and stuff like that. So that's one of the westerns that we see earlier. And you see a powerful free black western clan. They call her a free black woman. The person who write this right here, they ignorant because they know from her documents that she give them a document that says she been a Moor. And look for that Moor land. In 1826, they have to put some documents in for her, the mayor of the state. Because the United States, the District of Columbia, been playing games. This book just about the woman, so you know the man been definitely after going through this, been doing the same thing. So if the United States been giving them things like free black, free person of color, and they still been struggling and still been telling them that dying who they are, they what else would they been saying? And these people would try to put white and Indian in their documents ain't even the same stuff like that. Like see you filing affidavits stuff. The United States start to give extra taxes on blacks and all kind of laws against blacks down in DC. Deal with dealing with subjects. They say capitation or head taxes simply because they were black. See, free blacks categorized as denizens. They going through hell under that term. And noble draw they come and have to bring them out of Rome because that's where you at in this. And we're gonna top it off with this. So we see Martha Inglis. Martha Inglis, part of this community. They say so in 1824. Like the same with the Westerns, right? Say planter Henry Rutledge. Henry Rutledge, you look him up on Wikipedia. That's one of the slave masters of the South at that time. You know, you're not painting a picture of him or whatever, but He's supposed to be a white slave, or he the one who signed an official declaration claiming that Martha and her sisters were grandchildren of Lucy, a subject of the Emperor of Morocco, who came to the colonies in 1775, which thus been the freedom of all these people, and after they always been in their own kingdom, even in Rome, even in wherever they are on the planet, wherever the name of their country is, even because of this act that the Sultan did. Because he his people in his land. It don't matter if Christians running them or Moors running them. Moors free. No matter where you're at on earth. And these documents is the reason why they can't let you be there. You got to be something else, because in the law, they can't do nothing to it. They can't write law against Moors, extra head tax and all that, because you're going against the treaties. You can't write that in law. So you gotta use magic. See, so he stated that Lucy and her daughter Susanna and mother of Martha, who freely served one Sarah Smith. So you see these people like Lucy and Sarah Smith, and that they got these people at Martha and them as slaves and not like that. At this time, everybody been listed as a subject of a prince of Morocco or France or England, because that been just the person who was the head of your household who got control of all the states, who got control of the attorney of power of attorney and all that. So they had always taken enjoyed the advantage and privileges, because as a Moor, on especially in the 16 to 13 colonies, because that's our states, we got the highest right of privilege. Don't let nobody tell you no different. That's why you see in Moors we just getting in people's houses and stuff, because they notice. But regardless if they notice or not, Rome will still hang you on the cross. And that still would be true after they hang you on the cross, but you on that cross. You still have privileges like that, advantages and privileges extended by the laws of this state to the class Moors of and its inhabitants. So slowly after the treaty been done, the Knights of Columbus been denationalizing all these people. They've been giving them documents like this all over the place. They've been getting rid of those documents. Okay, you free. We're gonna let you as white, or we're gonna let you as Indian, or we're gonna let you as this. 2 generations later, they children black, because they get them out of their understanding of who they is. No draw, they can't bring this back to them, to us. And we know this right here, because this Rome and this Carthage, and it's always what it is going to be. Rome and Carthage jurisdictions. All these Moors, they're giving them an idea of playing. They don't really know what's going on. But what we do get from this is the fact that they find a document signed by Planner Henry. You see, this right here is all I need from this thing. I'll go get the whole source if I want to know more, which I already looking for and doing. So you got people as women of color, black people, free blacks, which is what we call ourselves today. And a lot of these people got documents like this that get thrown in the trash from Washington, D.C. Try to file affidavits saying this. That's what they've been. This ain't start with Noble Draw Lee. And this ain't end and going overseas to modern day Morocco. You talking about people over here who are the Marikanos, which we can translate to Americans today. When they say we the people, we're talking about them people. And subjects of France, subject of England, subject of Portugal, subject of Spain, all these Moors and other Christians, Some dark skin, some light, some middle, whatever. Just like today, the United States create the United States, and within the citizens of those several states, been a lot of people who've been Moors. And this right here get into my family members, Mary Bow, and you see they got was an Indian. That's one of the terms Rome would use against Moors, especially in America, to denationalize them. Even if they were to get freedoms in that time, laws would show up to start to restrict them, which we do see in history. The farther you go back, the more freedom these Indians, free Indians, they start to put stuff like Indians that's in league with this government and this. They making Rome making laws for Indians. They can't do that for Moors, especially not on these lands. You probably can do that in Germany somewhere. uh, we say Nicholas Lindenboom, free Indian woman. A lot of these things, they Moors. Even they find the records of white. Like I said, they were giving some of them this right here on the document. They write this. And these people could probably go out there and tell them to put that since they ain't had no other destination for them to put. 1790 been the last year when they put more on a document in DC. They have free more spelled like a Moore by a lot of people named 1790 census. After that, they didn't use that no more. They just started using FPC, free person of color. You see, the free blacks in South Carolina, and they be like, remove the words free black too. They been telling you they ain't that neither. Negro, mulatto, or person of color. So what else that these people been telling them? If their affidavits been telling them none of these, the only thing left was white and Indian. But like we see with this document, a lot of these, the Sheen the only one. The Sundry Freemo's Act of 1790, then 8 other people who say the same thing. That's another version. There's somebody else who did that. And it's signed by Henry Rutledge. He was mayor at this time. Good thing they find this document because they wouldn't have never know that these people have been saying this. Person who write this book, because they don't know if these people have been saying that too. They're gonna assume that they were saying, oh, they must be mixed with white and Indian people. But I believe during the Civil War, all this before 1850, when allegedly the Civil War started, our war is already going on, and our wars against different nations have been going on. But you still got us around trying to hold on to a little bit we had left before the war. So this whole book is interesting. You see they write foraging freedom. Because it's weird to them that somebody who always been in Charleston, according to their records, would be putting stuff like Moorish American or Moorish free Moors, subject of Emperor of Morocco on a document because they don't understand modernly how empires and domains work. So let's come back in next.